My name is Amata, and in this Red Gaming Tech video I'm here with the latest from the tech world in the last 24 or so hours. We're going to kick things off with a PlayStation segment, as there has been a rather lengthy interview done with Andrew House, the ex-PlayStation boss, and VentureBeat. He discussed various things, which of course I'll get into in that particular segment. Then we're going to move on to AMD, as they have officially launched the RX500X. And we also have news that the Senior Director of Global Product Marketing at AMD, Chris Hook, has left the company. And then we're going to end things out with, well, a bit of an end for SteamSpy, as Valve has made some big privacy changes that are pretty much going to mean that SteamSpy will be no more. But, as I said, let's begin with PlayStation and Andrew House. Now, of course, there's been a lot of speculation and rumours in the news as of late regarding the PlayStation 5, but unfortunately, he was pretty damn good and managed to not be dragged into any comments or any speculation on that particular console. But of course, he was pressed about it by the veteran tech analyst Mike Vorhaus, whose name I hope I have pronounced correctly, and basically he was asking about the timing of the PlayStation 5, bringing up the rumours that, of course, stating that it is currently in an advanced state of design right now. Now, as I said, Andrew was not keen to be dragged into any specifics here, but he did kind of speak more generally about the view among hardware manufacturers and the fact that he is very bullish about longer life cycles for consoles. Now, obviously, he's not the boss anymore, but it still is interesting to hear his perspective. And he said, quote, "I'm very bullish on longer life cycles for consoles. Consoles are so underrepresented and underpenetrated in so many markets around the globe. There's so much potential. Let's not forget that China is still largely untapped." Now, this does actually tie into a comment that he makes elsewhere in the interview about how in 2013 everyone decided that consoles were dead. And he said, quote, "In 2013 the vast majority of conventional wisdom was saying that consoles were dead. The whole market was moving to mobile and there was no future for this. I remember saying to myself, to use a very English metaphor, and we're going to be the last governor of Hong Kong overseeing the end of consoles. Fortunately, all those impending doommongers were all very wrong." So as I said, it just kind of ties in with the fact that he feels that consoles are unrepresented. Now, of course, we saw a fairly lengthy gap between the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, of course, had very, very long life cycles. And, of course, the PlayStation 4 is now only approaching its 5th birthday. So it's been out a while, but it's not quite time, I don't think, for the PlayStation 5 to release. I think the current speculation of 2020 is about right on the money. Now, again, House did not talk specifically. He obviously doesn't have any inside knowledge that he's going to share with us, but he was asked about whether or not he believes that if the PlayStation 5 will use discs still, or if it's going to move to a purely digital medium. And he pretty much echoes my own thoughts here, but I'll read his opinion first, as it, of course, is the most interesting one out of the two. And he said, quote, "I don't have any firm knowledge on this, but my sense is that you will see the disc around in the industry for a while. If you're going to tap into some of those developing markets and allowing for that more traditional physical purchase model as an option is probably no bad thing." So yeah, now of course we have seen digital distribution become more and more a thing in PC gaming. Of course, PC gaming is almost purely digital now. You can still get discs, but a lot of the time they'll have the disc, but they'll also just have a Steam code in the case as well. But obviously in console, there is still a huge physical market. Even if there is a digital market, it's obviously fairly expensive for what it is, and I say most console gamers, or at least a decent portion of console gamers, still stick with the physical versions for whatever reason. I don't think we're going to see that change anytime soon because, well, not everyone has a brilliant internet connection, as I've discussed many times. But he did say, however, that he believes that cloud streaming of games is going to play a significant role in the next generation. And he said, quote, "If you look back at console gaming history, there are certain inflection points that allow for the industry to be upended and for new participants to emerge. One of those is when you have a wholesale shift in the distribution method. In content-based industries, that is what creating barriers to entry for people to come in. So, other than the technical challenges, there's no reason why game streaming can't be present in games in the same way, that we have seen in the music and film and television industries. The evidence I draw on was the original launch of PlayStation. That wasn't based on 3D graphics alone. The vision was to shift from expensive cartridges to more accessible and cheaper discs, dropping that barrier allowed developers to take more risks. Streaming could be the next inflection point, but the business model has to be thought through." And yeah, I pretty much agree almost completely with that. Again, it kind of ties into the whole good internet connection thing. It's not even just a country issue, even certain parts of America will just have really poor internet connection if they're in a small town, or or they only have one option, which is just not brilliant. And it's kind of the same here, to be honest. Like, around here I have the best internet available for my area, and it's not that brilliant, to be honest with you. So if my uploads are a bit late, it's probably because I've uploaded them 2 hours ago and they've now only just finished uploading, although it's gotten better, I will say. So it's kind of the same. You might live in a country that has good internet spots, but you might be in a bad area, the whole country might just have bad internet, that sort of thing. So I don't think we're going to see game streaming be a huge thing until that is kind of more uniform across the board, I guess you could say. And also the fact that the business model does need to be worked out. That is very, very true. It needs to be cheap enough, but obviously not so cheap that the company running it goes out of business, that sort of thing. So some very interesting stuff. Now, of course, there is a bunch more stuff that he did discuss, but I will link the interview in the description below this video, so do give it a read. It is definitely worth a look-see, so check it out. Anyway, let's move on to AMD, and let's start out with the RX500X. Again, this is a topic that we've been discussing a lot over the last few days, as this particular graphics card was spotted on the AMD website, but there was basically no information to be found. But now AMD has officially launched the Radeon RX 500X series family. Now, I know the question that's already on your lips, and that is, does it bring any improvements to the performance or power efficiency or anything like that, like we saw with the 500 series versus the 400 series? And the answer is no. There are no specs changed, but these are, as previously said by a representative from Power Color, built solely for OEMs. So basically there's the same graphics card that launched last year, but they are made for mobility platforms and pre-built PCs. Now, the second question that you're undoubtedly thinking of is, okay, so if that's the case, why does this even exist? And the answer is because OEMs are basically demanding a new branding scheme every year, as the older parts are already using the RX 500 series branding. So what graphics cards do we actually have in this lineup? We have the 580X, the 570X, the 560X, the 550X, and you guessed it, the 540X. Now, of course, just because there's no refresh at the moment doesn't mean there never will be, of course. There's a lot of speculation that there may be a refresh sometime this year, as of course AMD have nothing else until 2019. So it's entirely possible we will see a refresh as well, but it probably won't have the X branding. It'll probably be something else, maybe even the 600 series, I don't know. Obviously, I'm purely just speculating at the moment, but I doubt they do a refresh in the X series because that would kind of further confuse matters. So yeah, it's basically what we thought. It is purely for OEMs and does not bring any new specs changes to the table in the slightest. So a slight disappointment, but not exactly unexpected. Anyway, let's move on to our next AMD item, which is regarding Chris Hook. Now, basically what happened is there was a Facebook post which is now not available, but thankfully the sharp-eyed folks over at Video Cards managed to catch it, so credit to them. But basically Chris Hook wrote on this Facebook page that he was leaving AMD. He, of course, was rather the Senior Director of Global Product Marketing. He joined when it was ATI back in 2001. And he, of course, had various roles, considering that he worked there for 17 years, but obviously he is now departing the company. He did say, however, quote, "The most rewarding experience I had at AMD was reigniting Radeon over the past couple of years, with Radeon Technologies Group growing its market share from high teens to low 30s and achieving a record revenue quarter late last year. It was a ton of work, but I've never had so much fun, visited so many places, or worked with such amazing people." So it seems he's already left the company and is taking a bit of a break before moving on to pastures new. But it does sound like he's having a bit of mixed feelings, judging by how positively he spoke about the company. But of course, that's pure speculation on my part. But even if he's leaving on good terms, you still kind of feel a bit sad when you leave a company, especially when you've worked there for 17 years. You've obviously gotten to know the people there very, very well. You've gotten very comfortable in that role as well. So it's going to be a sad moment, even if you're glad to be leaving overall, or if you're glad to be joining your new position, I guess. But still, just wanted to wish Chris the best of luck. So, let's move on to our final item, which is regarding SteamSpy. So basically what's happened is that Valve updated Steam's privacy settings, not yesterday, the 10th of April. And basically this makes things clearer when you decide who can see your Steam profile. You can hide games you've purchased or wishlisted, and obviously you can hide any achievements and playtime you have associated with this game. Now obviously it's hard to know exactly why this has been done, but I think most people are thinking of Zuckerberg right now and probably thinking that Valve are cracking down and keen to say to people that you can lock things down to a fairly impressive degree if you want to. Now also another thing that I just forgot to mention is that by default now your game library is no longer public. Now this is where we tie into SteamSpy, because this is what SteamSpy relied upon to generate its data. So the fact that the game library is no longer public by default means that basically RIP SteamSpy. And the creator of SteamSpy, Sergey Golonkin, whose name I never know if I'm pronouncing right, said about this change on Twitter. He said, quote, SteamSpy relied on game details information being visible by default, and we won't be able to operate anymore. Now, one thing that's also going to be coming in the future to Steam is a invisible mode, which basically means you're going to be online, quote unquote. You can still see who's online and you can still send and receive messages, but you don't have to be online and be visible to others. Obviously there is the appear offline mode, but you can't send any messages or anything like that at the moment, so it is a bit better than appear offline. Now, interestingly enough, there was actually an interview taking place between Eurogamer and Sergey. Now I will link that in the description below this video as well, but there's a couple of segments from this that I just kind of want to highlight as part of this segment. And basically, Eurogamer asked him if he knew this update was actually coming. And his answer was no. He said, quote, no, I did not. I just found about it when a person messaged me on Twitter. Valve never informs anyone of any changes, so it's not surprising really. What they did was post it in their blog post while rolling out their privacy changes. They made users' game libraries hidden by default, and that's what makes SteamSpy operate. SteamSpy uses user libraries to understand what users have and then extrapolate data based upon that. I don't know why they did it. Now, obviously, it's pure speculation. This is anything to do with what's going on with Facebook right now. But the question more is, you know, is this to do with SteamSpy itself? Was this targeting SteamSpy? But Sergey seems to not really be sure. And to be fair, you can't really blame him. Obviously, he doesn't have a crystal ball lying around. But I'm not going to put words in his mouth. I'm going to read you his words. He said, quote, I really don't know. For a moment, I was thinking it was related to GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, laws going live in Europe in May. But if they wanted to be compliant with those laws, they should have hidden all profile information. Right now, they have sensitive information exposed by default, and only the game libraries are hidden. It doesn't really make sense. You might go, okay, I'm now slightly alarmed. What sensitive information? And he said, quotes the user's real name, Twitter handles, and all this stuff. It's all exposed by default. So with that logic, it does kind of make sense. But he said further on whether or not he thinks this update was targeting SteamSpy specifically, he said, quote, I mean, there are easier ways to block SteamSpy. If I understand correctly, what they did also broke the ability for players to join their friends in games because they can't see who owns what. I think if they just wanted to shut down SteamSpy, they would have gone down an easier route. Which, to be fair, is a good point. Now, I do wonder, rather, how it's actually going to work. Now, obviously, at the moment, when you're on Steam, you can see a little pop-up that says so-and-so is now playing whatever game. For example, you know, whatever that game happens to be. Will that go away? I mean, it's possible. We're going to have to see how exactly this is going to be implemented, how this is going to change the everyday user experience, I suppose. But the end result really is the same. The changes that I've mentioned will be implemented, and SteamSpy is going to go the way of the dodo. So, thank you for all the years of data, I guess, SteamSpy. It was very interesting. Sadly, we won't get any interesting reports about how much money these games are making, like we saw with PUBG and all that sort of thing with SteamSpy. But still, must be pretty damn hard for Sergey. I mean, to all of a sudden just have this ripped out from under you with almost no warning is gotta wake you up a bit in the morning. I mean, I would just be like, okay, my whole world's on fire, so what do? That would basically be how I'd be reacting right now. But yeah. Anyway, that's me done for this video. Thank you very much for watching. As I said, there will be the VentureBeat and Eurogamer interview links in the description below this video. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.